Welcome to this video on how to use Likert items in your research. And Likert is a man's name, and we are going to just give an overview and an introduction to Likert items. Now, the man's name was Likert, but you often hear people call these Likert items. His name pronounced correctly is Likert, and you'll hear both ways for these items. But the definition of these, they start out with a statement, and then the answers will be arranged horizontally and shown to be equidistant, as if there's the same amount of distance between each of the choices. And when we recode them as consecutive integers, and there's the same amount of space between consecutive integers. The verbal labels are approximately equally spaced as far as conceptually, like the space between I hate it and I don't like it could be conceptually the same as the space between I like it and I love it. The ends of this are opposite. The ends of the response choices are opposite. I strongly disagree. I strongly agree. Opposite of each other. And then if you have a middle, if you have an odd number of choices, which is the most typical thing, 5 is probably the most often used, the middle will be neutral. No opinion or neutral. And then the response measures the level of agreement or disagreement with the target statement. Here's an example of a Likert item. I like ice cream, and the choices there range from strongly disagree to agree. They're laid out horizontally, looking like there's the same amount of space between each answer. This is an example of a survey question that is not a Likert item. What is your favorite color? And then the choices are different colors, but see that it's not a range there. If you collected data here and half the people selected red and the other half selected orange, you don't want to average together the results and say that on average the favorite color is blue. See the difference between these two types of items? So I just want to be clear what a Likert item is, that you've got the statement and then the degrees to which you could agree with that statement. To interpret your data, you first recode the results into numbers. So you would change strongly agree to 5, agree to 4, no opinion to 3, disagree to 2, and strongly disagree to 1. And we're assuming here for the simplest sake that all of your items are worded in a way that strongly agree is the most favorable answer. Now I've got a little tip for you. If you have a lot of data to recode, use Excel, because Excel can do it for you. And we've got a little video on how to use Excel to recode your data. So after you've recoded it, get your results for each item. So say for this item, we've got 5, 5, 4, 2, and 3. Then for each item, you're going to compute the mean. And the way you do that is you add all the results. So here we have 5 plus 5 plus 4 plus 2 plus 3, and then divide by the number of responses. We've got 5 responses, so that gives us 19 divided by 5 is 3.8. So the mean for this item is 3.8. Now, how do you interpret that? Well, if we divide the range from 1 to 5 into equal intervals, if you count the chunks between, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So, and you can also compute that by 5 minus 1 is 4, but it might help you to see it visually. From 1 to 5, we have 4 intervals. And so 4 divided by 5 is 0.8. And we're going to use 2 places after the decimal because that's going to be our degree of accuracy. So 0.8, for the length of an interval, we could divide this length into 5 equal intervals of length 0.8. So to interpret the results, we know that the length of each interval for where our mean falls is 0.08. So from 1 to 1.08, if it falls within there, we're going to interpret it as strongly disagree. And then if you add the end of the intervals, add 0.08 to the end of this, you get 2.6. So we know from 1.81 to 2.60, if our mean falls in that range, we interpret it as disagree. And then once again, add 0.08 to 2.60 for the end of the next interval. And see, for the end of each interval, it's the one before it plus 0.080. And then the interval starts where the other one left off. Now, our answer was 3.80. That was our mean. That falls in here. And so we would interpret our mean to be in the agree range. And so our answer, I believe, was 3.80. No, I'll have to go back and look. Our answer fell in the range between 3.41 and 4.20. It was 3.80, so that is the agree range. So now we know how to interpret that result. Now, how do you describe your results? To describe your results, we can describe anything that came out in the range from 1 to 1.80 as very low agreement. And then in this range, we'll describe that as low agreement, moderate agreement, high agreement, and very high agreement. Now, if you've got a lot of data, you do not want to do this by hand. It looked simple in this overview because I had so little data. But if you've got a survey that you gave to hundreds of people, or even, I wouldn't do this by hand, even if it was a small number. But you can use Excel to easily do all this stuff. It will recode your data for you from words into numbers. You can compute the means for every question. You can assign where it came out. You can do things like compute means for subgroups. By that I mean like the means for the different genders, different ages, and you can graph your results in Excel. And we've got other videos to show you how to do these things. If you have questions or other topics that you would really like help with, put them in the comments and we will address them. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll be alerted when we make additional videos that address the things that you say you would really like help with.